What's up, everyone? Tera Roberts here with your free agency deep cuts for week 17. As always, be sure to like this video and subscribe to Fantasy Alarm. Now, at quarterback this week, I'm giving you two options, both likely to play due to injuries. The Ravens have been struggling at quarterback with Lamar Jackson dealing with an ankle injury, and Tyler Huntley landing on the COVID list missing last week's game. That left Josh Johnson as the last quarterback standing against Cincinnati, where he completed 28 of 40 passes for over 300 yards and 1 touchdown. One thing became very clear in that game. The Ravens quarterback, whoever it is clearly set up to thrive from a fantasy perspective. Lamar Jackson did return to practice, and he's looking like he's still struggling, and it doesn't seem likely that he'll play, but Huntley was activated, and if Jackson can't go, Huntley is in line for the start. The Rams are a tough defense, but with insane rushing upside, Huntley is a top 10 quarterback if he plays. Trey Lance is another high upside quarterback. Jimmy G is dealing with a thumb injury and seems doubtful to play, meaning that Trey Lance is in line for the start. He is another quarterback whose rushing ability makes him a viable option from a fantasy perspective. If he was facing a defense like, say, the Dallas Cowboys, I would be saying, back away. Let's slow down on this one, but he faces Houston, a team that just so happens to be terrible against the run. There is potential for big production here. Moving on to running backs. Clyde Edwards-Helaire seems very unlikely to play, and that would make Darrell Williams the lead running back, as evidenced by his high roster percentage. But Derrick Gore should also be a factor this week, and Gore is widely available on waivers and has shown that he can be very productive when given the opportunity. On Sunday, Gore had 12 carries for 43 yards and caught all 3 of his targets for 61 yards. I do expect Williams to be the lead back, but Gore can be enough of a factor to justify his roster. I'm a little bit surprised that Boston Scott is very low rostered considering the situation, and that I would even be able to include him on this list, but Miles Sanders is out this week. Jordan Howard is dealing with an injury and questionable. I get it, people might be a little bit fearful after that week 13 game where we thought that Boston Scott would be highly involved and we saw not a single touch from him. But last week, Boston Scott had 12 carries for 41 yards and a touchdown. If Howard can't go, or even if he's a game time decision and slightly limited, I feel oddly comfortable with starting Boston Scott. Moving on to wide receivers, the Buffalo Bills have their entire arsenal of receiving weapons active on Sunday. Typically, this has meant that Gabriel Davis won't be a factor, but I think the tides are changing in Buffalo. Emmanuel Sanders just hasn't been productive, and Gabriel Davis has been on fire every single chance that he's been given the opportunity, and he's been incredibly reliable in the red zone as well. Even with everyone healthy, I still think that Davis has earned the right to be a factor in this very, very soft matchup against Atlanta. An even deeper option is Nico Collins. Nico Collins has become a regular piece of the Texans' offense with a snap count higher than 60% for the past 5 games, and a total of 24 targets over that time period. Last week, he caught his first touchdown of the season, and the matchup against San Francisco is good, and Davis Mills has been on fire. Collins can be a deep play option this week. And another very low rostered option at receiver is Perryman. The wide receiving core last week consisted of Antonio Brown, who saw 15 targets. The only other receiver to catch a pass was Cyril Grayson. Perryman hasn't really been particularly productive in the few games that he has been active this season, but considering the lack of usage from all the other receivers last week, Perryman can be a very deep play option this week. And at tight end, MIro hasn't exactly panned out the way that we thought he would in the absence of Darren Waller, but he has put together a couple of decent games with 11 receptions on 13 targets over the past 2 games. This week he faces Philadelphia, who has given up the 4th most fantasy points to tight ends. A double-digit performance in PPR is well within his range. And that wraps things up for this week's free agency deep cuts. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to Fantasy Alarm. I hope that these players help carry you to victory, and good luck with your lineups.